how can I be prepared to increase chances of being likable?
If you're overly trustworthy as a person and that's part of your values, maybe you should reconsider that because it might not be beneficial to you.
It's been 10 years after my graduation, and only now I have this true feeling, sincere desire to get to this stage.
There's a difference between trusting someone from a professional standpoint and then trusting someone as a friend and a confidant.
Hello everyone, and welcome to SiMStories. SiMStories is all about guiding journeys and inspiring futures. Every story is a step forward. Learn, grow, and navigate your future. Today, we are going to learn, grow, and navigate your future with Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Hello. Thank you for having me on, Kate.
I'm so honored to have you here. You know why?
Why?
Because we're going to talk about something really interesting.
Yes.
Okay. So, surprise for our audience is about our topic we are going to uncover. Stay tuned. The power of soft skills, the power of people skills to get your job, to succeed in your career, and get your job done to achieve success. Why being likable and easy to work with matters more than you think. This topic we currently talked about with Melissa, and it was really far theme, I would say. And I want to expand on it. I want to expand this topic. I want to talk more. And Melissa, I remember our conversation, and you mentioned that, oh, you know what? Whatever, you have technical skills, it's fine. You're expert in something, it's good. You have communication skills, awesome, great job. But what's important is to be likable. I was like, likable? I was like, I can't make sure that I will be liked by all the people, and I don't want to please people. Can you elaborate more? What does it mean to be likable, at your job?
Yeah.
You should just do your job. That's it.
Well, you can have that opinion and you'll get far, maybe, but you won't get as far as if you were to hold social relationships in a very high regard.
Oh, yeah.
Think about how, if you've ever managed anyone, who you might gravitate towards. We're all, at the end of the day, we're all primates, right? How do primates live their lives? They have a social hierarchy. If you aren't able to survive, on your own unless you're with the pack. Yeah. And you have to be accepted into the pack. And you know what's really interesting? Thousands of years ago, when we were living in caves or whatever, it was the same thing. We were not able to survive on our own. It's only really in the last 500 years or so where it's become kind of possible to be a lone wolf. But we need each other. We need each other to succeed. So you need your manager, and your manager needs you, and your manager needs their director, and you need your director, and everybody really needs to be on board with you as a person, you and your brand, as well as your capabilities in order to succeed in maybe becoming in a leadership position or advancing in your career. Otherwise, you will hit a glass ceiling.
Yeah, but being likable doesn't mean that you're getting some job security. Being likable.
Well, think about it.
It guarantees job security. Just for example, I'm doing some just regular job, nothing extraordinary, no extra miles, but everyone likes me. I was like, oh, that's cool. So I have job security. Is it enough to be likable and easy to work with, or I need to do something else?
Sad to say, I think if you had to choose between one or the other, you should choose likable.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. What proves this as a point? People talk about the old boys club. People talk about how
old boys club.
Yeah. if you look at how many CEOs are older white men, there's a reason for that. It's because they can build very strong relationships with one another and help each other grow. And they have things in common, and it's understandable, isn't it? Yeah. You tend to gravitate towards people that mirror you, who have the same ideas as you, same opinions, same background. So using that as evidence, it's undeniable that being likable and having friends in the right places will get you way further than your technical capabilities, no matter how good you are.
Yeah, that's really great. And maybe you can help me to understand what techniques, strategies should I use to increase the likelihood of being likable, if to say so. I don't know. Just let's imagine the case. So I'm about to get to the interview, right? And or I'm about to get into the really tough negotiation with a new client, and I want to deal with this client, right? How can I be prepared to increase chances of being likable? And before, okay, you'll think about that, and I'll tell my story really quick.
Yes.
Because I had this experience, and it's funny. I can tell you how I was preparing, and then you can share your opinion, whether it was right or wrong, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Like I had a client, and I had to travel to Texas. At that time, I was living in Massachusetts. It was like really interesting story and so funny. So, and I was preparing for the negotiations. I was like refining the huge deck with many slides. I was trying to learn some statements by heart, like all the thing. At some point of time, I was like, no, I'm doing something wrong. I need to like change my perspective and maybe think, how can I achieve the synergy with this person, like with whom I'm going to talk to. So I looked through the profiles of the people with whom I'm going to meet, and I looked through their interests, like their job experience, like their knowledge. And I was like, oh, interesting. This person worked with this methodology. Me too. Maybe like I just connect to like with him based on this topic. But the funny thing was that I was flying to Texas. I was like, okay, all these people, they're from Texas, from Austin, like from different parts of Texas actually. I was like, okay, there will be differently some words like Texas words. I was like, okay, I need to learn how to say this howdy, how to say hey all, like all this Texas, like, like whatever conversational words. And also I read somewhere, it was so confusing. I read somewhere that in Texas it can become so hot, so that like Texas government built the like underground bridges for people to move around.
Is that true?
No, I don't know. Like,
I don't think that's true. Where did you read that?
I heard it from someone, and it was so embarrassing because like when I joined these negotiations, I was like, so like confident in like being ready to go and present my slides and presentation and deck, and I was talking to these people about like taxes and culture and style. And at the end I was like, hey guys, by the way, like I heard about this thing like bridges, like it's interesting thing, like do you use these bridges just to get to work?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the tunnels.
Tunnels.
Yes, it's true. Yes.
It's true. Oh,
in Houston
okay.
And in Dallas, they have tunnels. Yes, in the downtown area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was asking about these tunnels, like,
But you said bridges.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah. They wouldn't understand that.
And they're like, look at me, and they're like, okay, and they didn't provide any answer to me, and I'm like, okay, it was like the wrong thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But at the end of the conversation, and I mentioned, I was like, by the way, I love Austin. You know what? Like this year I went to Mexico, and I love this like Mexican culture. So Texas is in my heart, and I really would love to move here one day. So, and actually apparently I moved here like a few months later, but it was so like embarrassing. Just, I don't know, I was trying to learn more, but I was overthinking.
Yeah.
That's the way how I prepared to this.
Yeah. It's interesting because you did the right thing. But, and you'll forgive me for saying this, I hope, it may have come across as inauthentic.
Oh, wow.
And authenticity is really important because people are smart. They can see through it. Yeah. They get gut feelings. And so you try to build rapport with them by talking about, in your terms, the bridges. Yeah. And they were just like, what is this girl going on about? And the other thing as well is they actually don't have the tunnels in Austin. So
they don't have tunnels in Austin?
No. Well, we live in downtown, right? You've never heard of the tunnels. Yeah, the tunnels are like very well known in Houston and Dallas. Okay. In downtown, yeah, it's to get out of the heat, you know. Okay. You can even, it's funny, you can actually park in downtown Houston, for example, and walk through the tunnels to get to your office building and never see the light of day. Yeah, it's true. But anyway, we're getting off on a tangent. Okay. We're digressing. People find comfort in familiarity. So building rapport, you did the right thing. Building rapport by mirroring people, by making them feel like you're akin, you get them and they get you, is really important. But you have to make sure it's authentic. If it feels inauthentic, it's not going to go well. You may as well not have tried in the first place.
But what does it mean to be authentic?
Authentic is, truthful to who you are, to have integrity in line with who you are, what you believe, and your values and your thoughts and your feelings, right? Like, and to show that and not be afraid of who you are. It almost takes vulnerability to be authentic. And obviously in a professional setting, there's a happy medium, isn't there, between like just letting it all hang out emotionally, but at the same time, like being true to yourself and your values. So authenticity is important. Mirroring to some extent. And when I say mirroring, you don't have to just like literally copy their hand movements. Wear what they're wearing. If they're wearing a suit, you wear a suit. If they're wearing like casual clothes like jeans, you wear jeans, right? So that's one really good example. Another good example is building familiarity. And I saw you went to the University of Arizona. It's in Tucson, right? I think it's in Tucson. It's in Tucson, right? I was in Tucson last year for I don't know, whatever, by hiking. So building familiarity, like feeling or showing that you are akin to them, that you have the same ideas and the same likes. But again, a balance of authenticity. Don't tell somebody who used to be a pro tennis player that you play tennis every day when you've never picked up a racket, for example.
I see what you're saying. But like, you know what, like I'm trying to understand this like boundary. For example, like if you're in a work environment, right, you already have your job and you're working some project, you have your client, right? So how to keep this boundary, like be friend to this person, right? Share something, be likable, but don't cross this border, because sometimes people like they overshare personal information and they like become too close to like clients or other like people, like other stakeholders, and at the end it can ruin the relationship and the kind of overall project, because you at some point of time there is a reason that you can share sensitive information. You don't think that it's sensitive, it's like kind of public, it's public, but you're sharing this what you're not supposed to share because you're friends and you're likable and you like this person, and then at the end it ruins your career.
It's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's difficult.
Honestly, I wouldn't trust anyone I ever work with. I know that sounds messed up. I truly wouldn't.
It's like contradiction. Like,
okay,
let's talk about it.
There's a difference between like trusting someone from a professional standpoint, and then trusting someone as a friend and a confidant.
Okay.
You can trust them from a professional standpoint, but I wouldn't trust them with like, I had a really bad argument with my husband this weekend, right? I wouldn't trust them with like personal information, like, I don't know, your dating life, for example. It's just not necessary. It doesn't add any value to your relationship. There's a happy medium. So I wouldn't trust a client with extended personal information. And it's a really hard one because it's one of those like social things that we pick up on through like, being socialized as a young person. And if you don't have that skill, it's very hard to learn.
And the question, I'm just like, all these questions I'm throwing at you, I'm so sorry, like I'm so curious to learn more like about your experience and your perspective. But I had this situation, like, it was like a long time ago, whatever, and there was a case when the client, like, we were really great friends with the client. I mean, like, this, like, stakeholders from my client's team, and like we just, we were like, I mean, close in terms of, just some boundaries, right? We used to like share personal information, but at some point of time I realized like maybe I'm oversharing and I need to stop doing this. And it was a moment when I was like, hey, hi, hello, whatever, like, just Peter, let's say this, name, it's not the real name, and Peter would be like sharing ton of like personal information to me, and I'd be like, oh, okay, thank you, and I would be like feeling this like feeling of guiltiness, that like, oh, he's sharing this thing with me.
He's choosing to do that.
But I'm not sharing anything. Maybe it will at the end, impact our relationship, and we won't be able to work together the same way as we did before.
I would say that if you felt guilty, that is no one can make you feel a certain way. You choose consciously or unconsciously to feel a certain way. So that's maybe a leap you were making internally that you should like explore as to why you felt that way, because you should never feel like you have to divulge personal information at work. I want to go back to what I was saying before, because you're right, there seems to be a contradiction in me saying be authentic, but also
don't really trust.
Being authentic is about being in line and acting in line with your values and your interests and who you are as a person, you can do that. And also you don't have to trust people. You see what I'm saying? Like if you're overly trustworthy as a person, and that's part of your values, maybe you should reconsider that, because it might not be beneficial to you.
Okay.
You know? So that's, I just want to align that. There's a fine line, but there is a line that definitely occurs, and it's very difficult to articulate.
Wow.
It's a, you know, it's one of those things. It's a feel. It's a feeling. It's not a tangible thing, you know?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's really interesting.
One key thing I want to mention that is probably the oldest trick in the book. I'm going to say it's trick in the book. It's actually from a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a very, very, very old book. Basically, the one thing it says in the book that everybody needs to do is make people feel special. I also heard about a study that was done on children in high school to evaluate what made kids popular, why certain kids were popular and why certain kids weren't popular. And the key thing that they found is the kids that were popular were really good at, hey, John, hey, Fred, when they walk through the corridors. Like making other people feel special, making them feel like they're part of a community, that they're friends, you know. And like this, you can still be authentic. And to be honest, if that doesn't come authentically to you, I think you should reevaluate maybe your values as a person, because you should be friendly to other people. The more friendly and happy you are as a person, it will be a virtuous cycle of feeling more happy in general.
That's true.
So that's my opinion on that. It's not like about being fake. It's about trying to concentrate on the good and the positive in people that you see, and acting forth with that.
For me, it was so interesting to observe that there are so many differences between cultures.
Oh God.
The way how you express yourself to the external world. And it was my biggest challenge when I moved to States. Because in my culture, it's like we have this zero trust strategy. What does it mean? You're not nice to the person, like first person you meet first time.
Yeah.
But once you learn more about this person and you understand this person well and you exchange some information, you can kind of trust this person.
Yeah.
Then you open up. So it means that people they're not so so open as in States. But at the same time, I think, and actually I proved this, that this is a skill you can actually gain, you can learn, because I have really interesting situation. It happened in India. I went there to visit my team, and they had team dinner, and there were many tables, all people. They were just they formed groups, and they were having food, fun, drinks, whatever. And what I did, I was sitting on at the table number 1, for example, with one group of people. And 30 minutes after, I was like, okay, I think I need to switch table. So I changed the table and went to another one, and then just had a small talk, and was really interesting conversation there.
Yeah.
Then 30 minutes after, I changed the table and went there and went there and went there. And then 2 hours after, one person comes to me and he's like, Kate, I'm so impressed. I was like, by what? He's like, you're so social.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sitting in this chair. I'm stuck in this chair. I can't just move myself, just push myself to go there. It doesn't mean that I don't like these people. It doesn't mean that I don't want to. I don't know how. I mean, just I don't have so much energy to go social like this.
Yeah, he's not an extrovert. Yeah.
Yes, but I used to be introvert. I was not extrovert. I mean, I used to be extrovert only to people I know.
Yeah.
For me, it was so hard to establish first connection.
Yeah.
But here, I learned that how important is it for you just to be social and just interact with people.
Yeah.
And I learned this from my startup. When I had to join different events, I had to go there alone without any friends, partners,
no one's gonna do it for you. Yeah.
Nothing. I was the only person who was representing my startup, and I was like, okay, now floor is yours, Kate. Let's go. And I was like, oh my god, what should I say? Tell these people, but you should do this. Otherwise, you won't have any networking. You won't have any opportunity, chance to develop your startup. You need to tell about your startup. You need to learn how to tell about something and ask about something.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I come from a similar culture. I'm from the UK, so it's similar. I don't want to. The easiest way to describe it is cold. We're colder than Americans.
Cold.
Yeah,
They have
UK
cold
cold.
winters and sometimes cold people.
Yeah. And it's not for any other reason apart from it's seen in my culture, it's seen as inauthentic to be very friendly to people that you don't know. But I don't think that's how it's perceived. I actually want to counter that. I think it's people's unwillingness to be vulnerable. You know, they're not, maybe not unwillingness, but they're scared of being vulnerable, because it takes vulnerability to put yourself out there. It takes vulnerability to sit in front of someone and be like, I want to know about you, because you're facing potential rejection of, I don't want to talk about, I don't want to tell you about me.
That's
right?
true.
So yeah.
That's so true. I love it, actually. I love this topic, and I can talk about this, like, for days. But we have few more themes to cover today. So I want to talk about learning path. So if to start with my journey, um, initially I made big decision in my life to go to the linguistic university when I learned foreign languages. Despite the fact that I had like really technical background, so I was like rocking math, physics, and chemistry at school. But I was like, oh, foreign languages, they're like, whatever, it's a weak point for me. It's not my strength. I need to develop this. And when I got my bachelor's degree as interpreter, like I decided to go and get a job in IT.
Yeah.
So it was like totally opposite. I didn't get any certifications. I didn't get any masters. I didn't get any bachelor's in computer science. I still believe that I need to get it right now. And my strategy right now is to look for some MBA program, like executive MBA, to get the master's, for example. So it's like it's been 10 years after my graduation, and only now I have this like true feeling, like sincere desire to like get to this stage.
Yeah.
So was I wrong not getting computer science degree when I started my job in tech?
Yeah.
Or am I right now, waiting for some amount of years and then pursuing this goal?
Yeah, it's a great question. I want to preface this by talking about why I might be qualified to have an opinion.
Yeah.
I have worked in recruitment, staffing, HR, sales, related talent solutions, basically talent, acquisition of talent, evaluation of talent, progression of talent for the last 10 years. So I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of resumes. I have hired hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And the truth is, I see, especially more now than ever before, people doing their bachelor's, not really knowing what they want to do with their life, and then going and doing a master's straight after their bachelor's, or doing a master's in a field that they think they might like, indebting themselves extensively, because it's very expensive, particularly in the United States, to be highly educated, and then stepping out of it and realizing they don't want to be in the career they're in. For example, I mean, like, I talk about doctors, becoming a doctor costs $500,000 in the United States. And the amount...
$500,000?
Oh yeah, easy.
How many years?
I think it's like, you do your undergrad and then you do your 3 years in medical school, and then you do your residency, which is 2 years. And that's to become like a generic doctor, like like nothing specialized. And then if you want to do a fellowship, you can. Then you do get paid for your residency, but it's like basically a stipend. It's not a good pay.
Yeah. Wow.
And so you think about that, and then you think about all this education you're getting. You also have an opportunity cost of not being in the workforce. So if you went and did an apprenticeship where you'd still be learning, for example, maybe it would be a vocational career or a craft career, but every year you're earning money versus spending money on a degree. And so you might come out with it in 5 years' time being of a net worth of, let's say, $100,000, whereas the person who's gone to university and done their bachelor's and then their master's, they've come out with a negative net worth of $150,000, $200,000.
Yeah,
so that's the first thing. The second thing, to get the most out of your education, you need real world experience. So it's not just about knowing what path you want to go on, and you can't know what path you're going to go on until you've had at least 2 years in the industry of performing that work. Now, get a bachelor's, fine. It's important if you want to go into any kind of like white collar, I'll use the term white collar work. But beyond the bachelor, spend a couple of years in industry, try it out, see if you like it. Let's say you want to become a data analyst, or you think you do. Go be a junior business analyst or a junior data analyst for a couple of years, then get your master's. And then beyond that, I see a lot of people going and doing MBAs with very little experience because they don't really know what they want to do with their career, and it sounds fancy. And that's probably the biggest mistake you can ever make, because MBAs are the most expensive higher educational degrees in general.
So we have bachelors, we have masters, then we have MBA, and then we have doctors.
I know an MBA is a master's of business administration. It's the same thing.
Same.
Yeah, but they're more expensive because they're more heavily weighted, because it's not just about learning about business. You can learn about business by doing business. You don't need an MBA. It's more about the connections you make. But you don't need those connections when you're 23 years old.
Yeah,
you need them when you're in your 30s or your 40s and you've had 10 years experience and you want to become a director or a VP of a Fortune 500 company, you know?
Yes, that's true.
So it's see it as an investment.
Yeah.
It costs the same as a house sometimes, you know, and what else you could do with that money to further not just you as a human being, but also your wealth, because we don't just work for fun, we work for money. Obviously it gives us a purpose as well, but you'll be sorely disappointed, I feel, if you don't really tactically choose your higher education.
Yeah, but before I moved to States, I had assumption that more certifications, more degrees you have in your resume, more chance you have to get a job.
No, it depends.
Does it really matter?
Your resume tells a story.
Yeah.
It tells a history of you. And if I read a resume that has like all the certifications under the sun, I think, wow, this person's really confused as to what direction they want to go in life.
Okay.
Now, if I see that you've I'll take data analyst, for example, because it's actually one of the most in-demand careers at the moment, in-demand areas of talent. Let's say you do a bachelor's in data analysis or mathematics or statistical analysis, something along those lines. You think you want to be a data analyst. You go and be a data analyst for 2 years. Then let's say you really enjoy it. You go and do your master's for a year and a half. Then that shows a progression that I can see, okay, this person is building on their skills and capabilities. Then let's say you do some certifications, I don't know, certifications in Power BI use or advanced Excel, I don't know what it might be. It tells a story and it shows that you're building on your skills and you're progressing in your career. Now let's say you do a master's in geography. Where the hell did that come from? It doesn't make sense. What do you want to stay as a business analyst? Because I'm thinking, what longevity will you have in my organization? Am I going to train you for 6 months, get 6 months of work out of you, and then you're going to go off in a year's time and go work for, I don't know, something in geography? You want to go be a geography teacher? That's important. Your resume has to tell a story.
Wow, interesting. And if we're talking about resume, so it has to tell a story. So for example, I have 10 years experience working in tech and same industry. It seems I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing this. I'm still there for 10 years, but for the last 8 years, I'm working for the same company, right? And I never thought, I had never any thought about changing the company, because we have really dynamic environment and I can change projects, so it keeps me motivated, which is great. But if you're talking about general rule, right? So what will appeal to you? Which resume will appeal to you more? The one where you see the person who spent 15 years in one company and now looking for the job, or you notice you see this person is jumping from one company to another one year, or some medium gravity of this?
Both are not ideal, but it depends on how well you can explain yourself, and it depends on if we call it jumpy when you 6 months here, 9 months there, 1 year there, 6 months there. It's called jumpy, right, on a resume. If you're jumpy, we want to know why, because maybe you did contract roles. There's nothing wrong with contract roles. You complete a role, you do a good job, you move on to the next. If it's because you could never find the right fit, that's a you problem. If everyone else is the problem, it's you, right? So 2 years is usually the minimum you should try and stay somewhere if it's a permanent job. Now on the other side of things, I actually have this situation at the moment. There's a gentleman I'm currently helping. He has 23 years in his current company in the network security administration.
He's working for this company?
Yeah, the company that he's working for here in Austin. And he's at final stage right now with a client that I'm working with. And the client asked multiple times, why is he looking to leave now? Why was he there for so long? Does he want career progression? Is he looking for a challenge? Is he somebody who's not very ambitious? So it's also something to consider. But if you show progression on your resume, like you started off as a junior, you went to a mid-level, then a lead, then a manager, then a director, that's great. But I will say, I have worked at, I think, 4 different companies in my career, not including my own now, but at 4 different companies in my career of differing sizes in the same industry. And I have, in each company, learned so much more than I would have had I stayed in the same one. So there is some serious value in jumping, to a sense, but staying for at least 2 years. So you can add some serious value, minimum 2 years. So there is a lot of value in going to different organizations as well.
Wow, it's interesting. Like, because I think whenever you join your organization, you like, again, you have your expertise, but this work environment is still new to you, and you need to also learn like these hidden forces, like just political forces. Like, I know just what's going on inside the company, like how this company exposes itself to their like external world as well, and just what interaction they have. Like, it's just different, like vibe, different dynamic in each company. And so it's interesting. And to evolve this thing, let me just develop this topic. I want to talk about career progression to the executive level. So what I like from my experience, right? So when I was living in Belarus, I used to be a certified technical interviewer, was interviewing managers all over the world. So my main goal was to not just to interview and check on the fit with the company's values, but also to also validate the experience, ask challenging questions, see how this person solves interesting cases, right? And then also apart from that, evaluate level of this person. So we have really defined kind of competency matrix in my company, and we have like A track, B track, C track, and you need to say like, okay, this person is manager level 1, and you need to like go through the criteria to evaluate, make this evaluation. And I faced so many situations when I was interviewing directors, like sometimes VPs from different companies, but I don't know how, based on this competency matrix, I could evaluate them only as manager level 2. And I was like, what's wrong? And like these people, they were upset really, but I couldn't do anything with that, because just, it's based on your experience. So for example, like what team size you had. This person, like I had like 10 people. I was like, I'm sorry, like it's like manager level 1 and 2. Like, and then I was trying to evaluate other criteria, and there was the same story. Like, what's wrong with that?
As in, why is that happening?
Why? Like, and it's not wrong. I mean, like, why it's happening? Like, just I was thinking maybe at first I thought that maybe we had really strict rules in my company, but apparently no. We're trying to like follow the overall market demand.
No, this is common.
It's common, and but then I realized and I noticed this. And I think some friend of mine told me, he's like, hey Kate, if you join like any small company right now, you can be C-suite. Like you can be like whatever,
but then
chief delivery management officer, and I'm like, but where? Like which
well,
company?
I'll tell you why that wouldn't be a smart move. Okay, let's go back to why people working at smaller companies will struggle to receive the same title and the same scope of job at a larger company. When you work at a larger company, and let's say you're a director or a VP, versus a smaller company where you're a director or a VP. Director or a VP of a smaller company, depending on the size of the population of the company, you might have 10 people in your team. If you're a director or a VP of 1,000 employees, you might have 200, 300, okay? The more people you have in your team, the more levels it goes through before it gets to you. So when there's problems, the problems are huge, much bigger at a big company than when you're working at a smaller company. The problems are smaller. And the problems that you might get the big problems every now and again, but the problems that come to you are more easy to overcome. Most likely. There's obviously situations, but the assumption is that. So if you are a senior executive at a small company, you're a big fish in a small pond, whereas it's a small fish in a big pond when you're working at a larger company. So you have to be prepared to take a title loss but maybe for a salary gain.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I want to discuss is your point to, if you left your current company and went and worked for a smaller company, you could be a C-suite. Absolutely. But it might be a relative sidestep. I mean, okay, you get the kudos of being a CEO, but it will limit your career in the future. You won't be able to then in 2 or 3 years' time jump into a large organization as C-suite. And in fact, people who are maybe looking at you for a director role or a VP role or something along those lines at a larger company will look at your resume and think, why is she going from a CEO position into a VP? Is she just using us as a hop to then get to the next level for a larger company?
I see what you're saying.
It's not guaranteed, right? But it's you're taking a risk on as a perception.
Interesting.
The other thing as well is CEOs of smaller companies tend to stick around longer, but of larger companies, they tend to cycle quicker. Because the board wants a fresh new look.
If CEO is not the founder, I mean, like if
Yes.
it's like hard CEOs.
Well, if you're a CEO and a founder, then your likelihood the business is small, right? But if you're working for a larger organization as a C-suite, they cycle them out. They want a fresh new look on things. The CEO position is very important, especially if it's a listed business. It has a direct impact on the share value. So
like the person who is assigned to the CEO's role has impact on their share value.
Absolutely, yeah. When people are considering investing in a stock or a share, they'll look at the structure of the business. They'll look at the growth. They'll look at the headcount. They'll look at all sorts of things. They'll look at the financials. But they'll look at the leadership, absolutely. And sometimes it can instill new confidence in people that it's a good investment if there's a new, fresh, hot CEO from a direct competitor who did a good job. And that's what they're trying to do. They're constantly trying to drive shareholder value on the board of large companies.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so if we're talking about the CCO, I'm curious. Have you ever met any people or just such cases where there was person assigned to the CEO's role or maybe VP role in really young age? Is it really hard for this person to position himself or herself in this role? When this person is super young.
Okay, an example, I never met him, but there's the guy that is currently the CEO of Red Lobster.
Red Lobster?
Yeah, the chain of restaurants in the US. I think he's 34, 35. He's also African American. He's received a lot of criticism, a lot of side eyes
because he's young.
Yeah, but he's bringing in a lot of new, fresh ideas that seem to be working for Red Lobster. I mean, I think Red Lobster. I think they might have filed Chapter 11 rather recently, or something along those lines. They really weren't doing very well, and so I think he's part of a private equity firm, and they placed him as a CEO.
I see.
So they've swooped in and to save Red Lobster. But so I see it. I do see it, but he's in a situation where he probably made friends with the right people. He had great connections. He obviously has a fantastic resume. He used to work at Goldman Sachs. Yeah, he's risen the ranks. He's probably great with people as well and has great ideas. So he's got the trifecta of great with people, great at his job, great resume that sells an amazing story. So it's rare, but it happens.
But then the question, why do people usually start their career in States, for example, what age? It just, I know, different. I mean, just their serious career, not only seasonal job, or one time, whatever.
The US is a very diverse country. It is not even remotely homogenous in terms of, those kind of statistics. I'll tell you, the sad fact is that white men probably start it way earlier and have a lot more better mentors, not just direct family, but also family friends and whatnot. And so they'll probably start it sooner, and then they will have a knock-on positive effect of then earning more from a younger age. And then when you earn more from a younger age, you have more opportunity to have compound interest in your savings.
Yes, that's true.
So it kind of is this, again, a virtuous cycle of earning more, being worth more. And they have mentors to tell them, don't do that MBA when you're 21 years old,
Why am I asking about that? Because I started my career when I was 20, 21, and for example, like in work environment or even in social clubs, any social club, like when I talk to people and they ask the question about my career and job, like when I tell them that I have like more than 10 experience of working in tech, and like it's been only 2 companies, and yeah, it's been a long time, and they're like so surprised that I have like so like they some people, they don't believe that I have 10 years experience. And I was
Why?
like, because just I look so young. They're like, of course, assume that I'm less than, I don't know, 30, whatever. But anyways, even like in my age, they consider this, like, this fact that I have like such, extensive experience, 10 years of experience, like huge. Like, but like, and it surprises me here because I never thought about that. In Belarus, people usually start working at like 18,
Yeah.
and they start working at 18, not like in the restaurant or as a driver or as like waitress, but they start working at 18 like in their real job where they could pursue career, and they're really kind of level-headed there.
I don't know. It might be the circles that you run in. It
Oh
could be
yeah.
anecdotal. Like I personally don't think that there's a big difference. Like in the UK, for
Yeah.
example, the progression is 18, you go to university, you finish at 23, something like those lines, and then you enter into the workforce. Because, and actually, you know what it might be? People are more willing culturally to take on debt here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so people take on student debt, and then they're like, cool, I got student debt, no biggie. And then they go and like travel the world for 2 years,
Ah,
whatever.
yes, yes.
Or they, get a job as a waitress because they want to earn, in the US, you can earn a good money as a
Yeah.
waitress more, probably in a
Yeah.
nice restaurant than you
Yeah.
can in your first job post university. So then they go and be a waitress for 2 years because they want a nice lifestyle, or they go
Oh
and be a
yeah.
bottle girl or whatever.
Yeah.
And then,
It's
their
interesting.
degree's useless.
Oh
Or
my
was
God.
useless. Like, why did they do that? And they could have just been
Yeah.
a waitress or whatever.
Wow.
But
That's
I don't know. That's my assumption. But it's anecdotal. I personally don't have much. I haven't noticed that myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I was just curious because I recently faced this kind of situation, and yeah, I was like wondering why people, they just they can express their like emotions in this way, that like they're just kind of surprised seeing me in this position in this age. And I was like, okay, for me it's normal, but I'm curious why it's not normal for you. It's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, when people have a trifecta, like I said, like that African American gentleman who is 30 something years old, all of the cards stacked against him, as it were, from a DEI perspective, who's CEO of Red Lobster, he probably has the trifecta. He has a great resume with a good story. He's a very likable person that's easy to get along with, and he's also got great ideas and very
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, I also like when I was learning, I was really interested to learn more about motivation techniques, and like apparently, leadership change is one of the motivation techniques for the
Leadership
team. Change in leadership, like change in leader can motivate team, like because they have, like, for example, if they struggle with existing leader, whatever, team leader, manager, like CEO, whatever, like person in leadership, if there is any change there, like it can motivate people because they can get some hope that something will change for better. And when it's like when there is any stagnation or degradation, like in work environment, bringing some person new as a leader gives some chance for the situation to like go different direction and evolve.
And where did you hear that?
Like it's just from the books, the book reading, that like,
Really?
yeah, leadership change can motivate people.
I would say that it's a tricky situation, because if you get a new manager and you didn't sign up for that change, it's kind of like, starting a new job that you didn't sign up for.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's a luck of the draw. Like, what if you don't like them? What if you feel usurped?
Yeah.
Well, let's say you worked in that position for 10 years and you thought you were up for the promotion. It's I guess it depends on the situation,
Yeah, I agree. I was just like, I had this.
That's interesting. I've actually never heard that before. And my view of that, like what I've seen around, is actually the opposite.
Opposite, really?
Yeah.
Wow,
for the reasons I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so like sometimes, like I didn't have this experience in my life, like leadership change. like when just someone leaves and someone new comes in. Like of course there were some organizational changes like in my company. I mean, just my teams, but dramatic change which impacted me like negatively or positively. I was always welcoming and accepting new people.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we have like new person as a director or VP in like unit department. Okay, I'll just make sure that this person is successful, and I'll provide all the resources this person to help me as
Yeah.
well. So like just for me it's just a normal thing. And like yeah.
And that's the key. That's the key to really internally being likable with your direct supervisor, is understanding what their goals are and aligning your goals with their goals and putting
Yeah.
them at the forefront.
Yeah, and about like this goal alignment, I also heard one thing is that I can't recall exactly, maybe from some books or from like people I work with. So they told me that like you are successful when the person you're working for, like for example, client, is also successful. What does it mean? If like person you're working for, like, working with as a client, if this client progresses in his or her role, it means that you're also progressing in your role. So your goal is to make your client like very evolving. I mean, just and like successful at their career path, so that you can also grow in your company.
Yeah.
So and yeah, I think it's like a very basic thing. I'm sure many people know about that, but for me it was like the breakthrough idea. I was like, oh my god, really? That's insane.
Yeah. I don't think it's very obvious, because a lot of people think that, I think a lot of people have the opinion that their manager is there to support them and they're there to do a good job. But their idea of doing a good job is through their own lens.
Yeah.
And it might not necessarily align with their manager and they don't realize it.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
It's kind of like emotional awareness there.
Yeah.
And you gain some emotional awareness in realizing that.
Okay, Melissa, thank you so much. I think that I just ruined the whole scenario of this podcast, and just like I went with the flow because I was so engaged into our conversation. So I'm back to normal, back on track, and I want to ask you a few more questions which are really planned.
Sure thing.
So how do you know when it's a high time to pivot in your career? I asked this question to myself each day. I was like, maybe 29? I was like, no, sorry. 31? Okay, I'll do it in 35. So like,
what do you mean pivot?
Pivot, like just when you're like in your best age, like with great energy, like high level of productivity, performance, and you're like, this is the time for me just like to like really skyrocket.
Yeah, the younger the better. But some people have kids.
Yeah.
Some people get sick.
Yeah.
Some people have to look after their families, their parents. Yeah. I don't know if their parents are elderly or whatever. It's so personal.
Ideal case scenario, like just person like 30 years old, having experience, 10 years experience in some job career, right? And this person's like, okay, I'm ready to go. I want to like really kind of just show up and do it.
Yeah.
And just build this. Like, is it like a good age, like 30, to having 10 years of experience? Because I also noticed that some people who start their careers, like, it doesn't matter in what age, they work for the company for 6 months and they're like, okay, so reaching out to the manager, tell me what should I do to get to the next level? I'll be like, just get experience. Like 6 months, like just you have like many more years ahead of you. Like, why are you in a rush?
Yeah.
So I have this feeling that some people who start their career like these days, they expect to have this pivot like right away in 2 years.
Yeah.
I was waiting for my pivot 10 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, just okay. So what's the like middle size of it, middle brain of it?
If you think about it from a selfish perspective, the younger you are and the more money you make, the better it is for you, because the more years you have in your life to earn compound interest from your savings.
Okay.
And so the younger you can retire, if you want to retire, or the more opportunity you'll have to do things with it, invest in companies, go off and do something on your own, start your own company and not have to have anyone invest. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, is every organization that is well structured, like EPAM, for example, is like this, you just mentioned, has criteria for each position. And most good companies who are well established and structured will advertise what you need to do to get to the next level. So that shouldn't even be a question that they should have for their manager. They should already know that. And it should be well advertised in the organization because you're trying to encourage certain behaviors. So in understanding that, it should be fairly salient. You don't have to ask after 6 months, because if it's 3 years of experience in XYZ, you've got to have 3 years of experience. That's my opinion.
Yeah, of course. Like, it's like we just sharing our opinions and our own
Yeah.
perspectives. That's true. Yeah. All right. So I'm still trying to find this middle ground, like where to like pivot. Like, but I had this imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Like, I can't make it until it's perfect, and I feel that I can't reach this perfect moment. I'm like, no, I need to like get like 5 more certificates and 10 more projects and like million more budgets, successful achievement of something, and then I'll be ready.
Okay.
So that's the point.
Perfection is the enemy of progress.
Yeah.
Also, what you define as perfection is not necessarily what everybody else defines as perfection.
Yeah, it's my own perfection. Yeah.
It's your own, and I'd say that that's something that comes from within you.
Yeah.
That doesn't maybe serve you. As I said, you should be trying to progress your career as young as possible.
Yeah.
For all of the reasons I've mentioned.
Yeah, that's true.
But having an understanding of where the structure lies in your organization will help you do that.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I'm trying like where just to do just good enough, like at this point of time in this moment.
Yeah.
And act when I have at least 50% of confidence.
Yeah.
I also heard it like from read in one of the books and heard from one of the podcasts that it's enough to have like 50% of confidence to act.
Yeah.
So, and this is what I'm trying to experience and just sometimes go with the flow, and it works really well. So like it's nice. So like I also know some few people like in my circle, they actually have this imposter syndrome, and I'm trying like whatever to share it. I'm trying to share my experience with them and to show like how they can overcome them. But some people, they can't even accept the fact that they have the syndrome.
Yeah.
And so many people just struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like, and just I noticed it so many times, like when just you're in a rush, just delivering projects, and for you it's important to have something, this feature, like at least like 90% of feature, like 80 good enough, just stable enough. But today, like, and one of my coworkers, he brought me a really great example. He's like, let's say we're building some features for the Thanksgiving Day, and you're a developer who are building this feature for Thanksgiving Day, like mobile app, whatever, like discounts and some products on sale, right? And you're like, no, I want to make it perfect. I want to like just make it stable, beautiful, like all the elements aligned. And you're working on this like instead of 1 month, but 2 months, and it's already December, Christmas, and you're like, oh, actually, they don't need it anymore.
Yeah, you missed the boat.
And you're like, but it's perfect. Like, look at it, it's perfect.
No, it's actually quite the opposite of perfect. Yeah. It's useless.
Yes, it's useless.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And also, when I was reading the book, Poor Dad, Rich Dad, and it was also interesting moment to observe about writers. And this author of the book, he was talking to like another lady. She's a book writer. He was successful and as a writer, but she was really great, but not successful. I mean, successful, not best-selling. So she didn't earn any money, but she could earn this money. She didn't know how. And she reached out to him, and he just showed her this book, like his book, and he's like, read the statement. Just like, okay, best-selling author, like book, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, do you see the answer to the question? She's like, no. He's like, read again, best-selling author. And she's like, but what does it mean? He's like, the thing is that you can be perfect at what you do, but like until you find the way how to sell what you do, how to position yourself, how to create image for yourself, like you won't be successful. That's the point. Best selling best. Like you should be an author, you should be the writer, you should make it perfect, but you also need to learn when to stop and switch to other like area of your business to like sell something and bring your community to this and actually become best-selling of something. Best-selling of your service, of your business, of whatever your image, like build your image properly to this external world. So that's kind of also helped me to reevaluate my thoughts like about this perfection and imposter syndrome. So like to like just do just enough. And I tried to experiment with this, and it worked really well, and I love it right now. So, in our SiMStories studio, we have fire round.
Okay.
To make it more funny, we are calling it Sim Navigation Round. Sim is all about waves, ships, ocean, ship in the mist, of course. So, but what does it mean? These questions can be tricky and provoking. So, if you don't want to answer this question, we can skip it
Okay.
and move forward.
Let's try.
Yeah, let's try. So, the first question: what's the one people skill that can make or break a career? Make or
Your
break.
your ability to make people feel important.
It can make your career.
Yeah.
What can break your career?
Yeah. If you make
Also?
Yeah,
Oh.
if you make people feel like they're not important, and if you can't make people feel important and special, and you leave a taste in their mouth of, oh, yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
interesting. Okay. Making people feel important and special.
Mm-hmm.
I learned this lesson as well.
Yeah.
Next question. If you could only master one skill for lifelong career success, what would it be?
Managing up.
What does it mean, managing up? Elaborate.
It means kind of what we've spoken about already. It means your ability to understand not just the obvious goals of your manager, but also the insidious goals.
Okay.
And
Hidden
to be
clues.
able to align your goals with theirs, but also manage their expectations of you, manage their expectations of what you will and won't do or like accept. Yeah.
Interesting. Managing up. All right. And last question. What's the biggest career risk you've ever taken, and was it worth it?
So I started my own business in August
2024?
24, because I got my green card and I was like, this is my time. And so far it has been the best decision I've ever made. It was so worth it. Yeah. Wow. It's going better. Like, listen, it's still a fledgling startup, right? So I haven't paid myself a salary since August, and thank God I have like really good working capital. So that was an expectation, but I have had a lot of traction. I have made like quite a lot of revenue, all things considered. I made a profit from this point, like to, so that's, making a profit in your first year is amazing.
Wow, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a modest profit, but it's still a profit.
What made you start this business? Like, why did you do this?
Okay. The truth is, and this is me, my authenticity and my vulnerability, I was sick of working really hard to make other people rich.
Wow. Yeah. This is great.
I know. Wow. I mean, you know what it's like being on a visa. You kind of like have to do what they want. You got to like, hoorah, drink the Kool-Aid, like even when you don't agree, like, you got to work for people who maybe aren't as capable or as knowledgeable as you, and it's like you're kind of stuck. You can't ever leave. So that's been basically the history of my career in the United States. I feel is, I've had a lot of opportunity. I've had some great mentors that have taught me a lot, but I got to a point where I felt that I was being limited, and I was being limited. Yeah, this, like I learned all I could in that role.
Okay, I see.
And I hit a ceiling, and I kind of thought to myself, well, okay, where am I going to be able to go? Where I'm going to be able to learn? I could go to a bigger company and get like a executive director, whatever position, but the problem with that is I'd just be dealing with other people's problems, and it's not exciting to me. Yeah, I like the nitty-gritty doing things as well as the solving of the problems. So
wow,
yeah,
that's great. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
It's like, I think it's one of the biggest risks in your life which you can take.
Yeah.
And, I think you'll be paid off even more like with the time. But I'm happy to see that you are still engaged and motivated to pursue this goal, and I believe in you. I think it'll be successful.
Thank you.
Sincerely and genuinely. And you mentioned this thing about mentor. I'm curious, to learn more about this, like, and as we wrap up this session, because like why we're all here today, right? Because like we are building mentoring platform, and it was my also sincere belief and desire to connect the dots. I mean, just like to bring experienced people to the platform, so that
Yeah.
people who want to pursue the career, they have I know some masters there, like not masters, but like people who are like who can show, who motivate them by like their real world experience, and show how to solve complex problems. Because I learned one thing, that complex problem is different from complicated. Complex problem, you can't just fix it following step by step guide as if you're fixing the car.
Mm-hmm.
You need to apply very creative, strategical, thoughtful process to approach the situation. It should be really kind of very, should be really individual and case basis. So that's why like I'm asking you about your mentoring experience, and
Yeah.
did it help you? Did it help you in your life, your mentoring
Oh,
experience?
yeah. I mean, I think everybody who's listening to this podcast will know the potential value of having a good mentor. I've mentored a lot of people as well, and I know that I've brought a lot of value to their careers, and I know that they're very thankful for that. So I've passed it on. Listen, not everybody is like lucky enough to have mentors in their
Yeah.
life, or even know how to like get in touch and
Yes.
deal with finding a mentor.
Yes, that's true.
So yeah, mentors are really, really important, so that they've done the hard work and they've made the mistakes that you don't need to make.
Wow, that's
So,
cool.
yeah.
I would love to see you as the mentor in our platform. So like,
Let's do it.
let's do it. So yeah, so this is like formal invitation for Melissa to join our platform as a mentor, and
Thank
I hope
you.
that our community will be able to learn more from Melissa's experience through our platform. I think she has like more knowledge beyond what she shared today. Yeah, and thank you, Melissa, again. It was such an honor for me to have you here, and I'm so excited like for your journey with your business.
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited to continue working with you through our platform and seeing you as a mentor, helping other people like around the world. And it was SiMStories Studio. SiMStories is all about guiding journeys and inspiring futures. Every story is a step forward. Learn, grow, and navigate your future. Thank you everyone for joining. Please don't forget to subscribe. Till next time.